The biker looked around. The attention he was getting wasn't the kind he expected. People weren't laughing with him anymore. They were watching him the way people watch something that might go wrong. He didn't like that. He stepped closer, invading Steven's space now, using size the way he always did. Head tilted down, jaw forward. The classic posture of a man who has won most arguments by making the other person feel small. He had no idea it wasn't going to work this time. Steven didn't step back. He didn't look away. He didn't shift his weight or clear his throat or do any of the small nervous things people do when they feel threatened. He just stood there, breathing normally, looking at the biker the way you might look at something you've seen 1,000 times before and aren't worried about. That drove the biker crazy. You think you're tough? The biker's voice had an edge to it now, real irritation pushing through the performance. Sitting there all quiet. You think that makes you something? Steven said nothing. My wife doesn't deserve that, he said finally. His voice hadn't changed once. Still low, still even. Just say you're sorry and go back to your seat. This doesn't have to be anything more than that. He was offering the man a way out. A clean exit, no bruised ego, no consequences, just a simple apology, and the night carries on. That was the gift being offered, and anyone with any sense in that room could see it. The biker didn't take it. He pointed a finger at Steven's chest and tapped it. Hard. Once. I don't take orders from you. A woman near the window gasped. Someone said don't do that, too quiet to matter. The bartender's hand found the phone. Steven looked down at the finger, then back up. His expression hadn't changed at all. He reached up and moved the biker's hand aside. Not violently, not even firmly, just redirected it. The way you might move a branch out of your path on a walk. That small gesture broke something in the biker, because being redirected like that, being handled so casually, with no emotion and no effort, told him something he didn't want to know. It told him that the man standing in front of him was not afraid, had never been afraid, not even for a second. He shoved Steven's shoulder. The room erupted. A woman screamed. 2 guys stood up from their table. The bartender was already dialing. 3 phones went at full height. Steven took 1 step back, smooth and deliberate, not from force, but to create a clear space behind him where his wife was standing. He put his body between her and the biker like a wall being built in real time. Then he straightened up, shoulders square, feet settled, breathing slow, and he didn't do anything else. He just stood there. That was the most terrifying part, because the biker had shoved him and nothing exploded. No wild swing, no crashing into tables, no moment of chaos. Just Steven, standing still, looking at him with those calm and steady eyes. You can still walk away, Steven said. I mean that. The biker was unraveling now. You could see it. The confidence was still there on the outside, but the inside had cracked. His hands weren't quite steady. His laugh came out wrong. His friends behind him were no longer leaning forward. They were leaning back. He grabbed a bottle from the nearest table, glass catching the bar light as he raised it. Let's see how calm you are now, he shouted. Every person in that bar stopped. Truly stopped. Like a pause button had been pressed on the entire room. Steven's eyes went to the bottle, then back to the biker's face. Put it down, he said. Not a request, not a threat, just a statement of what was going to happen. The biker hesitated. That hesitation cost him everything. Because in that half-second of indecision, Steven moved. It wasn't fast the way action movies are fast. It was fast the way things are fast when someone knows exactly what they're doing. 1 step in. 1 hand redirecting the arm holding the bottle. 1 shift of balance that the biker never saw coming and couldn't correct. The bottle slipped free and hit the floor with a sharp crack that rang through the entire bar like a starting gun. The biker stumbled back, grabbing for balance that wasn't there, and found himself sitting hard against the edge of a table, looking up. Shaken, confused, not hurt, not pinned down, just suddenly and completely removed from the situation. Steven stood between him and the rest of the bar. Calm, still, breathing like a man who just got up from a nap. You're done, Steven said quietly. The biker opened his mouth. Nothing came out. His friends weren't moving toward Steven. They were moving toward the door. One of them already had his jacket off the back of his stool. None of them said a word. The bartender appeared at Steven's side within seconds, voice low and firm. Security is coming. Take your guys and leave. The biker looked around the room. Every face he met looked away. Not from fear of him, from something else entirely. The kind of look people get when they have just watched someone embarrass themselves completely and don't want to add to it. He stood up slowly, tried to pull his jacket straight, tried to find something left of the version of himself that had walked in an hour ago. It wasn't there anymore. Fine, he muttered. We're leaving. He walked toward the door with his friends surrounding him like a slow and quiet retreat. He didn't look back at Stephen. He didn't look at the crowd. He kept his eyes low, which was about the only smart decision he made all night. Stephen nodded once, as if the answer had confirmed something he had already known. He didn't advance. He didn't speak again. He just stood there, between Danny and his wife, like a wall that had decided to become a wall and would remain one regardless of what else happened in the world. Danny pointed a finger. You need to sit back down before something happens to you. Stephen looked at the finger, then looked back at Danny's eyes. The finger, Stephen said calmly, should probably go back in your pocket. A few people stifled a sound. Danny flushed. He stepped forward, now close enough that the proximity itself was meant to be threatening. Standing inches from someone without permission is a language. It says, I don't respect your space, which means I don't respect you. Danny had spoken that language many times. It usually worked. Stephen didn't move back, didn't stiffen, didn't widen his stance or puff out his chest. He just remained exactly where he was, which is somehow one of the most powerful things a person can do when someone is trying to intimidate them. Danny jabbed the finger into Stephen's chest. One poke. Hard. Deliberate. Gasps scattered across the room. A woman at the bar said, Oh no. The bartender reached for his phone. Stephen looked down at where the finger had landed, then back up at Danny. What happened next was quiet enough that some people at the far end of the bar missed it entirely. Stephen reached up, took Danny's wrist with 2 fingers, and moved his hand aside. Not violently, not with any visible effort. The same way you'd move a glass off the edge of a counter before it fell. Practical. Complete. Danny yanked his arm back, shocked. He stared at his own wrist like it had done something without his permission. Don't touch me, he snapped, voice climbing higher than he intended. Stephen said nothing. Danny's crew was not laughing anymore. 2 of them had straightened up off the wall. One of them, the one who'd looked uneasy at the start, had already moved a few feet away, creating distance in the way that animals do before something goes wrong. You think that scared me? Danny barked. He was performing now, talking louder because inside the volume had dropped. You think I haven't dealt with 1,000 guys who think they're tough? I don't think I'm tough, Stephen replied. I'm asking you to leave. I'm not going anywhere. Stephen nodded once more. He turned his head slightly toward the bartender. Would you call security, please? The bartender already had his hand on the phone. Danny saw that, and something cracked. Being removed by security in front of a bar full of people recording on their phones was a different kind of losing. It was a losing that went home with you. That stayed. He reached back and grabbed a bottle off the nearest table. The bar erupted in movement. Chairs scraped. Someone shouted. A woman near the window grabbed her friend's arm. The bartender shouted something sharp and urgent. Danny held the bottle up. His hand was shaking in a way he probably couldn't feel, but everyone else could see. Stephen looked at the bottle, then at Danny's face. His expression didn't change. Put it down, Stephen said. Still quiet. Quiet was the most terrifying thing in the room. Back off, Danny said. His voice had a waver in it now, the kind that comes from adrenaline fighting pride. You're scared, Stephen said. Not mockingly. Almost gently. That's okay. But this is not the answer. Danny's arm trembled. His friends were backing away now. All of them. Peeling off slowly like they'd never actually been there at all. Put it down, Stephen repeated. Before someone gets hurt who doesn't deserve it. And then Danny swung. It was clumsy. Unbalanced. The kind of movement that comes from emotion rather than intention. Stephen was already moving before the bottle completed its arc. He stepped inside it, not away from it. Inside, which is the last thing most people would think to do, and redirected Danny's forearm with both hands in a single motion, like rerouting a river. The bottle left Danny's grip without drama, without collision, and hit the floor in a crash of glass and foam. Danny stumbled. He would have gone down completely except that Stephen had kept one hand briefly at his elbow to steady him, which might have been the strangest and most disarming part of everything. The man who had just stopped him had also kept him from falling. Danny stood there, breathing hard, looking at the floor where the bottle had shattered. Then he looked at his hands. Then at Stephen. The bar was absolutely silent. Stephen stepped back, giving Danny space, giving him the room to be a person again instead of a threat. He wasn't looming over him. He wasn't holding him down or humiliating him while he had the chance. He simply stood at a respectful distance and waited. "It's over," Stephen said quietly. Danny said nothing. He looked, for the first time all night, like what he actually was. A man who had made a long series of poor decisions and had run out of road. The leather jacket looked different on him now. The swagger was simply gone, like someone had unplugged it. Security arrived through the side door, 2 of them, both large, both ready. They took one look at the scene. The shattered glass. Danny pale and unsteady. Stephen composed and still. The crowd watching in complete silence. They moved toward Danny without asking questions. "We're leaving," Danny said quickly. "We're done. We're leaving." His friends materialized from wherever they had retreated to and formed a loose cluster around him. No one made eye contact with Stephen as they shuffled toward the door. The uneasy one glanced back for a moment, then looked away. The door swung shut behind them. For a long moment the bar just breathed. Then somebody clapped. Single, slow, not sure of itself at first. Then another person joined. Then 3 more. Then the whole room, not wild or celebratory, but genuine. The kind of applause that comes from witnessing something that reminds you what people can be when they choose to be better than the situation. Stephen turned back to his table. His wife stood up and reached for his hand. Her eyes were shining. She looked like she wanted to say 100 things and couldn't find where to start. "You okay?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Are you?" He smiled, sat back down, picked up his glass. "I'm fine," he said. "Sorry about the interruption." She laughed. It came out watery but real, and the tension in her shoulders dropped about 3 inches. Around them, the conversation slowly restarted. The bartender replaced the music. Someone swept up the broken glass. Life moved again, but the room was different. Not dramatically, not in any way you could photograph or point to, but the people who had been there would feel it for a while. Something had been put straight. A line had been drawn and held without cruelty, and everyone had watched it happen. The bartender brought 2 fresh drinks to their table without being asked. He set them down and said quietly, "No charge tonight, sir." He paused. "And I'm sorry it got that far." Stephen looked up. "You did everything right," he said. "Thank you for calling it in." The bartender nodded and went back to his work point 20 minutes later. While Stephen and his wife were finishing their drinks, the door opened again. Everyone tensed. But it was only one person. Young guy, maybe early 20s, nervous in the way that takes courage to push through. He was one of Danny's crew, the uneasy one. He stopped a few feet from the table, turned his helmet over in his hands. "I want to apologize," he said. He wasn't looking at Stephen. He was looking at Stephen's wife. "For what my friend said. It wasn't right. It wasn't right from the start, and I should have said something instead of standing there." So, he exhaled. "I'm sorry." Stephen's wife looked at him for a moment. Then she nodded. "Thank you," she said simply. "That took guts." The young man nodded quickly, clearly relieved, and left before anyone could say anything more. Stephen watched the door close again. He glanced at his wife. "That one might be okay," he said. She smiled. "Yeah, maybe." By the following morning, the videos had already started moving. Clips pulled from 6 different phones. Some shaky, some clear, all of them capturing something different because the angles had been spread across the whole bar. One clip showed Danny's face when he stumbled. One showed Stephen's expression when the bottle swung. One caught the moment of the clapping beginning. The comments came fast. People who had never met Seagal and had no idea who he was talked about the man in the video like they had been raised by him. He could have ended it at any point. He kept trying to give the guy a way out. That's what makes it incredible. Not what he did. What he didn't do. Fighting channels broke the footage down frame by frame. They pointed to the redirection of Danny's arm and argued about what tradition it came from. They noted that Stephen's feet never crossed, that his posture never collapsed, that his breathing never appeared to change. One instructor posted a 17-minute video using it as a teaching example. What the instructors kept circling back to wasn't the technique. It was the decision-making. Every single choice Stephen made was aimed at de-escalation. The warnings weren't formalities. They were real. He meant every single one of them. He was genuinely trying to give Danny every possible exit. Danny just refused every single one. And that, said one commenter who got 40,000 likes, is what you're actually watching. Not a man defeating someone. A man doing everything in his power to avoid it. Newspapers picked it up the next day. Then the day after. The angle changed slightly each time. Some made it about bystander behavior. Some made it about how real martial arts mastery looks different than the movies. Some made it about Danny, who was apparently known at 3 other bars in the area for exactly this kind of behavior, and who had apparently been lucky until now. Danny himself went quiet. His social media, which had been very active, dropped to nothing overnight. People who knew him said he hadn't been seen at the usual spots. Someone who claimed to be his cousin wrote a comment saying that he hadn't slept properly and kept watching the footage of himself. Watching yourself behave the way you pretended you never would is a specific kind of pain. Back at the bar, the staff said the week after was noticeably different. People were friendlier to each other. A couple of regulars who had never spoken started talking. One woman said she felt safer than she had in years. The bartender put up a small sign near the entrance. It said, simply, "Everyone deserves to feel respected here." He didn't reference anything. He didn't have to. Stephen and his wife came back about 2.5 weeks later. No announcement. No cameras. They took the same corner table and ordered the same drinks. A few people noticed. Nobody approached. Nobody made it into a moment. They just let the couple be what they had been trying to be on that first night. 2 people. Together. Quiet. When they left, the bartender watched them go. He thought about saying something and decided against it because sometimes the best acknowledgement is the absence of spectacle. The door closed gently behind them. Outside, the night was clear. Stephen held the door for his wife, and she stepped through it the way she had 1,000 times before. He fell into step beside her. They didn't speak immediately. They didn't need to. A young couple was walking toward them on the sidewalk. The woman of the pair was describing something with her hands, animated, laughing. Her partner watched her like she was the most interesting thing that had ever happened to him. Stephen's wife smiled at them as they passed. When the other couple was gone, she glanced up at Stephen. "Good night," she said. He looked down at her. "Yeah," he said. "Good night." And somewhere across the city, on a curb or a couch or the edge of a bed, a man in a leather jacket was staring at his phone, watching a video of himself, trying to understand how the night he thought he owned had ended up owning him instead. Some lessons you hear about, some lessons you read about, and some lessons you live through, whether you wanted to or not. Because the strongest person in any room is never the loudest one. The strongest person is the one who knows exactly what they are capable of and chooses, every single time, to only use what the moment actually requires. Not one thing more.